Welcome back to Celebrate Sausage. I'm glad you could join us because in today's episode, we're going to be featuring America's #1 pizza topping, pepperoni. Stay tuned. Welcome to the final episode, American Pepperoni. If you're new to this series, there's going to be a playlist at the end of this video. It'll take you back to the beginning. You can catch up on all 31 different sausages that were featured on Celebrate Sausage. But before we talk about pepperoni, I want to thank the sausage maker, Smokin' It Smokers, Apera Instruments, and Everdry for being sponsors in this series, but I especially want to thank the patrons of this channel. Thank you for your support. And if you want more information about becoming a patron of the Two Guys at a Cooler channel, where you receive tons of discounts from companies you're probably already buying from, be sure to stick around to the end of this video. I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Let's talk about pepperoni. Pepperoni is a fermented, semi-dried sausage. It falls into the advanced category of sausage making because it does require special equipment and some special tools, a lot like salami making. Pepperoni gets its flavor from the paprika and the spices that are used in the recipe, but also from the fermentation. Pepperoni is known for its tangy or sourly quality. In today's video, I'm going to demystify the entire process and show you how to make the type of pepperoni that you could put on your pizza. There's one more thing I want to mention when it comes to making pepperoni, and that's the use of curing salts. Instacure #1 and Instacure #2. And one of the more frequent questions that we get is which one do you use for which product? So I want to tell you right now, definitively speaking, regardless of what you've heard before, I'm going to tell you which one to use. If the product that you're making is going to be ready to eat in less than 30 days, and it doesn't matter what it is. It can be a skinny salami, it could be beef jerky, or in this case, pepperoni. You're always going to use Instacure #1. If your product takes 31 days or longer to be ready to eat, you're going to use Instacure #2. So hopefully that clarifies it for you. If the production time is less than 30 days, cure #1. If the production time is more than 30 days, cure #2. You're going to see in this video that the entire production time for this particular pepperoni only takes about a week to a week and a half. Because it's less than 30 days, we're going to be using Instacure #1. Now that that's out of the way, let me show you how to make pepperoni.
To make this pepperoni recipe, the first thing we want to do is get our casings ready. We're going to be using 43 millimeter beef rounds from the sausage maker. You could use synthetic casings if you want, or you can even use hog casings if you want a smaller diameter pepperoni. These casings are AA grade casings. That's the highest quality you can get, and unlike sheep and hog casings, these aren't edible, so we're going to be peeling these off towards the end of the process. We're going to flush these and let them soak in water for several hours. You could do this up to a day in advance if you'd like, and we're going to set that to the side. The next thing we want to do is get our starter culture ready. Pepperoni is a fermented semi-dried product with a slight sourly note, and this particular starter culture is going to add the necessary bacteria to help ferment our sausage quickly and safely. This starter culture needs to be rehydrated 30 minutes prior to using it in some distilled water. So we're just going to put the necessary amount in that distilled water, give it a little mix, and then set it to the side. Now that our casings and our starter culture are ready, let's go ahead and take a look at the protein we're going to be using for this pepperoni recipe. I'm going to be using lean pork. In this case, I'm using ham. And we also have lean beef. I've got some eye of round. I've also got about 20% back fat in this particular recipe. We've chilled the meat, and now it's time to grind. We're going to be grinding all of our meat and fat together on a 4.5 millimeter plate. You can grind a little bit bigger if you want, 6 millimeter, it's totally up to you. Because our meat was well chilled during the grinding process, the temperature of our meat is still actually very cold. But if you notice that the temperature has increased too much, re-chill your meat before you mix it. An ideal temperature for your meat while you're mixing it is in the low 30s. The process of mixing itself is going to increase the temperature, and we don't want the temperature of our meat to get above 40. It's now time to add our seasoning mix, and you can find a full recipe in the description box below. Once we've done that, let's go ahead and add our starter culture. So we've got all of our ingredients ready to mix, and we're just going to begin mixing on a low to a medium low until your mix gets incredibly sticky. With a KitchenAid, this may take a couple minutes. If you're mixing by hand, it may take 5 to 10 minutes. But once you can take a little handful, turn your hand upside down and it sticks, you're ready to move on to the next step. As we're finishing up pricking our pepperoni, we're going to go ahead and weigh it. Pepperoni is a semi-dried sausage, which means we're going to hang it to dry for a period of time to reduce the water activity and to concentrate the flavors. What I'm doing here is I'm writing down the actual weight, and then I'm going to subtract that by 20%. I want to lose about 20% moisture from this pepperoni before we cook it. This is the mincemeat that was left over in my stuffing horn. We're going to set that to the side, and when it comes time to test our pH, that's what we're going to use. There's our pepperoni, and it's now time to begin the fermentation process. The bacteria that we added in the beginning really like temperatures between 85 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. This controller allows me to achieve that. I've got it set for 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and as you can see, it's currently 75.7. The heating light is on, letting me know that my heating element is active, which is going to increase the temperature. And my heating element is plugged into the heating port on that same controller. So what am I using as a heating element? Well, in my case, it's a simple 100-watt incandescent light. That's going to generate enough heat to increase the temperature in this little chamber to ferment my sausage. You could use a reptile heating mat, a seed heating mat. Anything that generates heat will generally be sufficient to get your temperatures warm enough. And although I happen to be using my Smokin' It smoker to ferment my sausage, you can just as easily create this same setup in an ice chest or in your oven with the light on. We're going to be adding a tray of water to keep the humidity high during fermentation. And now that all the elements are in place, we're going to go ahead and put our pepperoni inside this fermentation box. And this is where the bacteria that we added is going to begin consuming the sugar that's in the recipe, releasing lactic acid, lowering the pH, acidifying your pepperoni. The fermentation stage for this starter culture takes between 18 to 24 hours, between 85 Fahrenheit and 95 Fahrenheit, at a 90% relative humidity. And we're going to be targeting a pH of 4.8 to 4.6. So now it's time to test the pH. It's been roughly about 18 hours, give or take. And in this step, we get to actually tweak the flavor of our pepperoni. If you're going to be getting into hobbies like this, I highly recommend, first and foremost, investing in a good pH meter. We use and highly recommend the pH meter from Apera Instruments because it's consistent and delivers reliable results, and it also has a ton of cool features. Notice I'm at 4.85. Now, I can technically stop right here, but with a pH meter, I'm able to fine-tune the flavor of my pepperoni. The lower your pH goes, the tangier your pepperoni is going to be. So we're going to put that back in the fermentation chamber, let it ferment a little longer till I can get to 4.6, and look at that. 4.6, this is the perfect acidity for my particular taste. It's now time to take our pepperoni and cold smoke it for 1 to 2 hours. This step is completely optional. I personally like a slightly smoky, tangy pepperoni, so we're going to be using a cold smoker by Smokin' It Smokers. This thing is amazing. All we're going to do is add our pellets or our wood chips. We're going to light it up and begin the cold smoking process. Our pepperoni has been fermented and cold smoked, and it's now time to begin the process of drying. This is going to take between 4 to 10 days, depending on the diameter of the casing that you chose to use. It's going to happen in a controlled environment of 55 degrees Fahrenheit and 80% humidity. Now remember, we're going to be targeting a 20% weight loss. So we're going to take our freshly cold smoked pepperoni sticks, and we're going to go ahead and place that into a drying chamber. Now, this particular drying chamber is a modified refrigerator where we can control the temperature and the humidity. By controlling the temperature and the humidity, we allow the pepperoni to dry nice and even. And one way to control the humidity is by using a dehumidifier from Evadry. This is the 1100 model, perfect for a charcuterie chamber. We're also going to be using a humidifier. This is a cool mist humidifier, and both of those units work harmoniously to keep the humidity inside of our chamber in balance. Now that we've got everything dialed in, we're going to close it and allow it to dry. These are the controllers that control everything. This green controller controls the temperature. It controls the heating and the cooling. The refrigerator is plugged into this unit, and we have it set for 55 degrees Fahrenheit. It's currently 55.4. As it cycles the fridge on and off, it maintains that temperature. This blue unit by Inkbird controls the humidity. We have the humidity set for 80%, and this particular controller turns on and off the humidifier and the dehumidifier to maintain an average of 80%. That's what we have it set at. And the humidifier and dehumidifier are plugged into those simple outlets. And now we wait. We're targeting a 20% weight loss. So it's going to hang out in that drying chamber until we lose 20%. As soon as it does, it's time to cook. And this is the last step in this epic sausage making project. So we're going to take our pepperoni out of the drying chamber, and we're now going to cook it. The idea here is to cook it low and slow with a high humidity. If you have a sous vide and you want to vacuum seal your pepperoni, that method works great as well. In this case, I'm going to put it back in my smoker with a tray of water and begin our cooking schedule. Smoke-it smokers have the capability of creating programs for your cook. And that simply means that you can cook at different temperatures for different amount of times, depending on what you're trying to make. Here's my schedule for this pepperoni. We're going to start off at 125 Fahrenheit for an hour and a half. It's then going to bump up to 135 Fahrenheit for an hour. Then it's going to bump up to 145 Fahrenheit for an hour. And then finally, step number 4, it's going to bump up to 155 Fahrenheit until the internal temperature of the pepperoni reaches 135. This particular unit has Wi-Fi capability, so I can control everything from my phone. And as soon as we're done cooking, I'm going to get a notification on my phone letting me know my pepperoni is finished. And this is what it's going to look like. So we've got our pepperoni. It just hit 135. We're going to go ahead and remove it from our smoker because it's officially done. Notice we have our tray of water. That's kept the humidity high through the cooking process. But also notice there's no rendered fat. If your tray of water has a lot of fat in it, it generally means that something went wrong during the grinding or mixing and your pepperoni might be dry. Let's put that in some ice cold water to stop the cooking process, and it's now time to slice our pepperoni and give it a taste. I love this sausage. The end result is a culmination of fermentation, smoking, drying, and cooking, where each one of those steps imparts its own unique flavor characteristics. It's an incredibly challenging sausage to make, but when made right, it is so rewarding. I'm going to go ahead and remove that beef middle, that particular casing, like we said earlier, that is not edible. I'm going to go ahead and slice this pepperoni up, and this is what our pepperoni looks like. And I got to tell you, fennel, anise, paprika, and cayenne, a touch of smoke. It looks great. It smells great. What better way to enjoy American pepperoni than on a pizza? Oh, wow, that looks good. This whole process has taken a little bit longer than about a week and a half. It's required patience, dedication, control, precision, and this is the end result. Pepperoni. Let's taste it and see what it's like. Oh, wow, that's delicious. Smoky, a little bit spicy, loaded with flavor. The pepperoni's got a great texture. It's juicy, amazing.
And that's how you make pepperoni, the tangy, semi-dried, fermented sausage that is absolutely incredible. Not only on a pizza, but on your subs, on your sandwiches. You could toss it in a salad. It's a great sausage to make. You can find a recipe for this American pepperoni in the description box below. There are a lot of steps to making this particular sausage, and I get it. It can be a little overwhelming, and you might not have all the equipment. So if you want to see me make American-style pepperoni in just one day without all the equipment, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I've got a secret ingredient that's going to make that happen. You're not going to want to miss it. Thanks for being a part of this series. And if you have any suggestions, as to what you want to see on next year's Celebrate Sausage, leave them in the comment section below. And if you'd like to be considered for a part in next year's production, check out the description box below for my contact information. Send me an email. And as sad as I am to see this series come to a close this year, the journey is just beginning. The Two Guys in a Cooler channel is dedicated to demystifying all charcuterie so that you can take your sausage making game up to a whole nother level. If you like what you see and you want to support our work, consider becoming a patron of the Two Guys in a Cooler channel, where you not only get a lot of cool perks and you get the possibility of having me as a personal sausage mentor, but you get a lot of cool discounts from companies you're probably already buying from. We try to provide a lot of value for our patrons. Thanks for watching this series. I'm glad you could be a part of it. We will now return to our regularly scheduled programs. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.